This is WRUULP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul. You are listening to One Human Nation with your host, Sandy Batiste. This program will be talking about race and race relations in your community and nationally. Our goal is to be open, honest, and productive.
I hate to do this, but I'm going to start it over because I noticed I didn't have something clicked down on here, and I want to make sure. Name of the ministry?
The name of the ministry is the Coastal Pregnancy Center. We are a ministry of a church now for 33 years.
Wow.
So we are very excited to be still in operation.
Right.
And we encourage the ladies of this community to use our resources as best they can.
And so how would they contact you?
Okay.
Website or phone number also, if you want to provide that.
Okay, well, we are, the phone number is 912-721-2975, and that is the direct line to the Coastal Pregnancy Center. Our website is coastalpregnancycenter.com. And we look forward to hearing from any of you who might need our services.
Okay. So kind of what we're going to do today is we're going to listen to, because in the African American community, there's just a distrust of medical systems anyway. In particularly, there's distrust around Planned Parenthood. And for full disclosure, there's another show, a wonderful show on WRUU, entitled Health Ethics, and they recently interviewed the director for Planned Parenthood. So I haven't seen where they've uploaded that show yet, so I'll have to get on them about that.
Right.
Because it was good for me to listen to the point of view from the current director, which really didn't address some of the historical problems, and she covers the Southeast region, and I didn't get a chance to Google today where the Planned Parenthood is, if it's in Savannah, because they may not have, they have like 9 offices, 9 facilities, I should say, but it covers Southeast Georgia. So it's, could be in Columbia, could be other places. So I didn't get a chance to Google for today. So and I'm sure they're doing wonderful programs because that's some of the things she talked about. But my concern was it did not address the historical history of how Planned Parenthood was started, who the starting member was, and her racism, basically. We call it what it is,
Right.
on the One Human Nation show. So we're going to take a listen to the beginning of this clip, and I'll pause it at some point. I think around 1 or 2 minutes, I'll pause it. But it will give a good historical reference from the Smithsonian, where they actually have a display, and there was some controversy of whether they should remove it because of the racist history. And I'm one of those people that I'm not a candidate of removing all of these historical artifacts. I would much rather they add an additional display to give the other side of the story.
Right.
But we can't just erase the story. That's
Right.
the problem with reconciliation with racism in this country. We all just want to move on. And we can't move on until we face the truth of our history.
History is history.
History is history.
Yeah.
And it's been told one-sided. We have to tell the full truth, and in order for us to get to healing and to get to reconciliation, to become one human nation. So let's take a listen to this clip from the Smithsonian about the initial founder of Planned Parenthood, and her name is Margaret Sanger.
To Planned Parenthood every year, so it should come as no surprise when it funnels your money to celebrate its founder. The Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery recently opened a new, federally funded exhibit that, according to the museum's curator, celebrates women who have challenged and changed America over the past century. Included in the list is notorious liberal feminist Margaret Sanger. The National Portrait Gallery website provides a brief description of Sanger, describing a concerned crusader who fought with the courage of a wounded tiger for the promotion of birth control. What the Smithsonian exhibit fails to mention, however, is that Margaret Sanger founded the largest abortion chain in the country, now known as Planned Parenthood. But the exhibit also fails to explain the racist ideology behind Sanger's promotion of birth control. Many people don't really know what eugenics is. Eugenics is defined as belief in the possibility of improving the qualities of the human species by discouraging reproduction by persons having genetic defects or presumed to have inheritable, undesirable traits. Essentially, eugenics is the creation of a master race by controlling who has children and who doesn't. An article appearing in the January 31st, 1922 edition of the New York Times bore the headline, "Mrs. Sanger says Superman is the aim of birth control." If creating a race of supermen is the goal, who did Sanger believe had genetic defects or undesirable traits that stood in the way? In his book, Birth Control, Facts and Responsibilities, Adolf Meyer quoted an essay Sanger wrote in 1925, entitled, "The Need of Birth Control in America."
Birth control is not merely an individual problem. It is not merely a national question. It concerns the whole wide world, the ultimate destiny of the human race. In his last book, Mr. H.G. Wells speaks of the meaningless, aimless lives which cram this world of ours. Hordes of people who are born, who live, yet who have done absolutely nothing to advance the race one iota. Their lives are hopeless repetitions. All that they have said has been said before. All that they have done has been done better before. Such human weeds clog up the path, drain up the energies and the resources of this little earth. We must clear the way for a better world. We must cultivate our garden.
So we're going to pause right there so I can get some feedback from our guests, because it speaks to why there's a distrust from African Americans about really anything medical. That's why typically African Americans are late to go to a doctor for a diagnosis, because we had to depend on ourselves. And we had to deal, we had elders that knew holistically what to go out in the woods to collect. And so we did a lot of herbal. We grew our own, vegetables. We all, typically had gardens, because Ethel and I grew up in the same Gullah Geechee community. We were very self-sufficient. We depended on access to public waterways to do fishing, oystering, shrimping, crabbing, all of that. And we would take everything to market, which is what is now City Market, a lot of times in wagons on the same road that's there leading out to White Bluff and Coffee Bluff now. But they were very self-sufficient. At one period of time, the hospital that was for African Americans was the Georgia Infirmary, which is where I was born. But I also discovered, in looking at some of the documents that my parents left, was that they also, for their generation, some of them we had midwives in our community. And my dad was delivered by a midwife. And I know the descendants of that midwife, so it's we were very much more community oriented. So give us some insight on the clip that you just heard. And I don't know if you were aware of some of that history, but Margaret Sanger endorsed eugenics based on what she gathered from Hitler.
That's one of my first thought.
Yes.
That was the first person that came to my mind.
Yeah, and so that's where she gathered her belief system. And that's why Planned Parenthood was specifically put in low-income African-American communities.
Strategically placed there.
Strategically placed there.
Yes.
And so it wasn't about giving alternatives to abortion. And we're going to listen to some more of the clip. I hope it's on this clip, but there was also sterilization that occurred unbeknownst to the patients there.
Yeah.
And so what's one of the programs that you offer through your ministry that kind of gives your clients options? So kind of, well, I guess another way to put it is how do you take in your participants when they call in or reach out to you? What's the first step that you do?
Well, most of them, a great deal of them, think we are an abortion clinic because we're the Coastal Pregnancy Center.
Right.
So we get calls like that asking us about that in particular. So our response to them, more importantly, we want them to come see us. We don't want to just give them a generic answer so that they'll say, okay, and hang up.
Right.
We want to bring them in so that we can minister to them in all different areas, whether it's pregnancy, whether it's abortion vulnerability, whether it's resources, that kind of thing. So
And birth control.
we do talk to them about birth control, but that is not something we provide.
Right.
Okay.
So
we
do outsource.
we
also.
do we are a faith-based organization.
Right.
Okay, we aren't a ministry. And so the goal is to get them to come in. So when I get a phone call, I want to first explain to them what we do, and we just tell them that, we offer free pregnancy testing. Through the information we gather from them, we can calculate their conception date, their due date, how far along they are. And once we can get them in there, we can figure out whether or not they're making a plan to carry out a pregnancy or if they're abortion vulnerable. We talk to them about their faith as well. If we can help them understand that their value goes beyond their relationship with the young man that they're involved with, and that they're able to understand that their value first originated with the Lord,
Right.
then we have an open door to talk to them about other things, so that as they leave there, they're making different choices, they're thinking differently about where do I want to be in 5 years? Where do I want to be in 10 years? So we have so many open door opportunities to redirect. I'm not talking about strong holding them or anything like that. It's about giving them information they may not ever have heard or thought about. So when you take a young lady and she tests positive for pregnancy and you start talking to her about fetal development, they are surprised to know that in the very first day of conception, the eye color, the hair color, and the sex is determined on that very first day. Right. And they're just blown away about that information because they've never been told.
And so, it brings to mind the question is like, well, what do they teach in schools? Mm-hmm.
Or whatever their parents are not.
And their parents may not be engaged in that level of conversation. So, and to me, the schools that do talk about or have classes, what are they teaching these kids that they don't know?
Yeah.
That at the time of conception, that baby is being formed. It's not 3 months later or 6 months later.
That's right.
It's right there. And I think if they really stress that, then it has a different conversation, because I think that's the perception. I think people don't realize that.
I think people don't realize that it is something that happens right at that particular moment in time.
Well, in addition to them finding out that they are positive, if they come in abortion vulnerable, and we are able to show them the fetal development, that could take them from a mindset of, okay, well, I'm not sure if I want to end this baby's life. Perhaps adoption is a better option for us. So we also talk to them about those options as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I could remember back in high school when, they would show us films and stuff in science class and all this, and they would actually talk about the birth control pill, and that's one of the things that I remember when Planned Parenthood actually came to Savannah. I think it was like in the late 60s. I believe it was in the late 60s that it actually came here, that their thing was, the pill, get everybody on the pill. Well, rather than talking about abstinence, so we also talk about that, at the pregnancy center, abstinence until you're married, and how pleasing that is to the Lord. That's what he, that's what he talks to us about.
And it's respect for your body.
Exactly.
If you don't treat yourself as a queen, and I like seeing some of the fathers coming along, that they're more engaged with their daughters, and they take them on, dates to show them how they should be treated. And if you get involved with a male that's not respecting you that way, that's your choice.
Right.
And there are consequences to those choices, because you can't go into a relationship thinking that you can change somebody.
Yeah, they're also coming in with a history of their mindset.
Right.
It's okay to do this. They're not getting any instruction through the schools, or perhaps through their parents.
Right.
What abstinence is. Why do we abstain? Their value. They're not understanding what their value is. When they were created in the very beginning, God had a purpose for them from the very beginning, and it wasn't to feel like that was the value of them, was their sexual activity.
Right.
And
exactly.
so sometimes I'll ask them, I have a piece of paper out and it's got all kinds of writing on it, and I'll say, okay, let's suppose that everything that's on this piece of paper represents your relationship with your young fella, where you like to go to eat, the clothes you like to wear, the music you like to listen to, the programs you like to watch, and this represents everything about the two of you. And you take this item and you put it in the middle of that page, and that represents sex. Okay? Is your relationship with this young man strong enough that if you take this out of the picture, it's a worthy relationship to continue? Because that does not define who you are.
Right. And so to move this along a little bit, I realized, looking at the time, we need to make some public service announcements and that kind of deal. So we're going to do that and come back, listen to a little bit more of the clip, because we're not going to be able to get through all of it, but I think it gives us a context for talking about some of your other programs and the benefit to the community. So let's take a break. You're listening to the One Human Nation show, and we're going to take a break to make some of our announcements for our sponsors, as well as station identification.
Support for this portion of WRUU LP programming comes from listeners and Savannah Stopover,
you're okay.
presenting An Evening with Velvet Caravan live in concert on Friday, September 14th at the Lucas Theater, with jazz singer Annie Selick and the Atlanta Balkan Brass Band Mercury Orchestra. For more information and tickets, go to SavannahBoxOffice.com.
WRUU listeners like you crave exploration and discovery. That's how we can offer your business or organization a unique way to separate your name from the clutter inherent in commercial radio advertising. Underwriting on non-commercial WRUU will make your name stand out because we allow only a limited number of sponsorships per hour. And your message will be reaching listeners who are actively engaged in programs that demand their attention. Let our team build a customized plan to meet your marketing goals by linking your name to our unique music and talk programs. For more information, email underwriting@wruu.org.
ULP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community
would be of interest to the Savannah community. Again, if you're just tuning in, welcome back to the One Human Nation show, and here's a public service announcement.
Family Promise of Greater Savannah will present its second annual Fall Festival featuring 6 food trucks, a pumpkin patch, bounce houses, a dunking booth, rock climbing wall, and more. The event will take place on Saturday, October 20th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at St. Francis Cabrini Catholic Church on Middle Ground Road in Savannah. The event will benefit Family Promise of Greater Savannah, which helps homeless and low-income families achieve financial independence. For more information, call 912-790-9446. Family Promise of Greater Savannah will present its second annual Fall Festival featuring...
All righty then, welcome back to the One Human Nation show, and to our guests that are in the studio, Wendy and Ethel. So what are some of the... I know your ministry is its own 501c3. So do you want to talk about how you get your support.
Yes, we are fully supported by our home church.
Okay.
We are listed as a mission of our church.
Right.
So we don't have the we're not under any kind of oppression about trying to fundraise
right.
and all that kind of stuff.
But you do have your 501c3 status.
Yes.
Your particular ministry does.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's through through our church. Yes.
Okay. And then Ethel, if you can kind of share with us some of the other benefits or some of the other resources that you provide to participants, because they're required when they want to enroll in your program. That's when they start getting access to resources, right?
Yeah, many of the phone calls that we get there, it's, what else do you offer?
Right.
And so outside of the pregnancy tests, we also we have many people in our community that donate things to us.
Okay.
So some of our things are new, and most of them are gently used. But Ethel will tell you some of the things that we offer to them.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to say this right quick. I've been with the ministry for about 4 years, and what really drew me to it is the way the ladies handle the young ladies that come in with no
judgment.
Right, no judgment at all. It was a very loving spirit in wanting to be a help and to give them some guidance as to where to go, what
Right.
they need to do next and how they need to do it. And it was just, a very loving spirit, and to speak to them most of all about the Lord. Okay. But what we offer free pregnancy test, and then we'll also offer some information on how you can get some medical help, with your pregnancy. We offer
What about clothing?
clothing. We have, free clothing. If you need a crib, if we have a crib, people donate to us.
Right.
So cribs, strollers.
Diapers
car
are a big one.
seats. Yep, diapers, wipes, formula.
So on your website, do you list what you need donations for?
We do just list that we have other resources available.
Right.
We have to be careful that it doesn't turn into a shopping spree.
Right, exactly.
Because we are trying to just spread it out as best we can. We do have limitations on how often you can come and get diapers and stuff like that.
Right.
But
Right.
mhm.
And it's on if you really, really
Need it, which you can assess
Right.
without judgment.
Right.
Exactly, because I think there's so much judgment when a young African American woman gets pregnant. She's getting judged by her family. If she's involved in the church that she's in, she's getting judged there, and she's getting judged by the community in general. Up and down her street, people
Yeah.
that so and so
Right.
is pregnant and she's
Right.
only 16 years old, or blah. So there's instant judgment. So by the time you get the phone call, they are in a different place.
Yeah, we try to be as transparent as we possibly can with them, and we want them to be the same way with us. We want them to be comfortable enough. We assure them we have a statement that says that everything is confidential,
Right.
and all that stuff. And to add to what Ethel said about the pregnancy test, once we've confirmed a pregnancy, then we can calculate for them their conception date and their due date, and we can give them proof of pregnancy so they can go make application for Medicaid.
Okay, so let's take a listen a little bit more to this clip talking about Planned Parenthood and the initial founder, Margaret Sanger, who actually had some very racist ideas that blacks were inferior and pretty much needed to be exterminated off of the face of the earth,
That's right.
basically, either through aborting babies and then performing sterilization without the knowledge of the patient. So let's take a listen. I hope this picks up there, but we'll see.
In 1922, Sanger wrote a book entitled The Pivot of Civilization. In it is a chapter called The Cruelty of Charity, where she blasts programs that provide medical and nursing facilities to slum mothers as insidiously injurious. In the same book, Sanger called for the cessation of charity, for the segregation of morons, misfits, and the maladjusted, and for the sterilization of genetically inferior races. She also argued that organized attempts to help the poor was the surest sign that our civilization has bred, is breeding, and is perpetuating defectives, delinquents, and dependents. The Birth Control Review was Sanger's official publication for the American Birth Control League, and in 1932 she outlined her plan for peace.
The main objectives of the Population Congress would be to apply a stern and rigid policy of sterilization and segregation to that grade of population whose progeny is already tainted, to give certain dysgenic groups in our population their choice of segregation or sterilization, and to apportion farmlands and homesteads for these segregated persons where they would be taught to work under competent instructors for the period of their entire lives.
Sanger's admiration for the eugenics programs of Nazi Germany were well known at the time. In 1933, the Birth Control Review published Eugenic Sterilization, an Urgent Need, by Ernst Rudin, who was Hitler's director of genetic sterilization and the founder of the Nazi Society for Racial Hygiene. In her praise for the eugenics programs in Germany, Sanger called for the implementation of such programs in the United States, specifically targeting African Americans. The following editorial was published in the 1932 issue of the Birth Control Review.
The Negro problem is one of the most complicated and important confronting America. Whatever the ultimate answer may be, such an attitude brings to light the function of birth control as a necessary agency in its solution. The present submerged condition of the Negro is due in large part to the high fertility of the race under disastrously adverse circumstances. Thus, the question arises, to what extent birth control has had a eugenic effect upon the Negro race?
If any question should remain about Sanger's racist agenda, a 1939 letter she wrote to Dr. Clarence Gamble should remove all doubt.
We should hire 3 or 4 colored ministers, preferably with social service backgrounds and with engaging personalities. The most successful educational approach to the Negro is through a religious appeal. We don't want the word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population. And the minister is a man who can straighten out that idea if it ever occurs to any of their more rebellious members.
Can there be any wonder why Planned Parenthood opens its facilities in poor inner-city neighborhoods populated by minorities? Can there be any doubt that Sanger's philosophy of creating a pure race is what fuels Planned Parenthood's support of embryonic stem cell research? Margaret Sanger was a racist. She's responsible for the millions of babies that have been ethnically cleansed from our country and should not be celebrated by the taxpayer-funded Smithsonian. Please visit the website and contact the Smithsonian demanding that materials on Sanger be removed from the exhibit. For American Life League, I'm Michael Hitchborn.
Welcome to the One Human Nation show. If you just tuned in, and we're talking about this topic of the role of the initial founder of Planned Parenthood to really, it's pretty obvious, to exterminate the Negro race. And, you know, during the periods of our development in this country, part of the problem is we only hear the story starting at the transatlantic slave trade. We had a history before then, but we won't get in that because I talk about that on a different show, on a different episode of the One Human Nation show. But I do want to get, you know, what struck me with this part of the clip was how they specifically, strategically targeted pastors at African American churches to bring the message to support Planned Parenthood. In other words, to be the face, because they had such a huge influence in the community. And I think that stigma is still there. And part of what it brought was also a distrust. And so there are a lot of the youth now that really disengage from their churches when they get to a certain age because what they're hearing is not resonating with the real world that they live in. So I think what's really impressive about your ministry is that you're separate from the church. They're dealing with people that are non-judgmental in its it just gives a different facet to what the options are. So do you want to speak to more about what are some of the other programs that you offer? Because you mentioned once they're in, you refer them to other resources. So what other resources that you refer them in? And we've got about 8 minutes to talk about some more of your programs. So we've got a little time there.
Okay. Well, we once again, we have like a 20-minute window with each one of these girls where we're trying to help them with their pregnancy issues, possibly talk to them about their faith so that they can redirect another way to think about who they are. We refer them to adoption agencies. We refer them to what else, Ethel? What else do we do? Living Vine, which is a Christian maternity home. If they're in a situation at home where they say, "Well, I can't go home and tell my mom; she's going to kick me out." We have those resources as well. So we're trying to give hope for the hopeless.
Right.
Our best case scenario is to have a young lady come in. Maybe she's still in high school or just started college, and her test is negative. Then we get to talk about abstinence and just redirect our whole thinking about having sex outside of marriage.
Right. I do want to ask you this question because I did visit, or when I listened to the Planned Parenthood interview that was on health ethics a couple of weeks ago, one of the things that struck me by what the current director was saying is that they do reach out to other organizations. So have you reached out to Planned Parenthood to get on their radar that you are an alternative resource? I'm just throwing that out there.
No, we have not done that.
I mean, I think that may be a good thing if they're really at this point in their development as an organization that they're walking the walk and talking the talk. I would think that your ministry would be one that would be a resource that they would refer people to.
I don't really see any reason why we shouldn't reach
Right.
out to them and just let them know that
you're
we're there.
and if they choose to have you as a resource and show you, put you as a link on their website, I think that would be awesome. And I think it would change the dynamics in how the African American community thinks about Planned Parenthood. So that's just a suggestion. I think that would be really cool to and then, I know just from how this conversation is going, we're not going to be able to cover everything. But then, at some point in time, we do a follow-up with you to see if that's happened and how that's changed, the resources or the referrals that you get in. Because I think that would go a huge way for Planned Parenthood to kind of polish up their image in the African American community. And it's very undercover. If you talk to many African Americans, they really won't express why they have a distrust of Planned Parenthood or our medical systems, because it was just something we didn't talk about because there were consequences to being that open and direct. And those consequences, not only could it be defamation of your character for speaking out, it could also at one point in time cost you your life. And so it's very easy for people that are not people of color that were born and raised under the shadow of slavery to say, well, why don't y'all speak up? It's like, well, we've got a history that speaking up didn't really turn out so well for us, as Dr. Martin Luther King, as the Kennedys, as Malcolm X, as Marcus Garvey, that had to pretty much go to because his thing was like, let's go back to Africa. Well, we have lost that context, but on a different show, I actually showed a video of the 10 basic tribes in Africa that were involved in the transatlantic slave trade. And when you see the features of those people, I see them in my people here.
Yeah, well, I can say that I really believe that Planned Parenthood know that we're there. I know that they know that we're there as an alternative to them. I don't see any reason why we, can't go and let them know.
Because it's really not a competition.
Just put their name on,
right.
On their thing, yeah. But I believe they probably know that.
Well,
we're
I would
there,
think
but-
so, because it seems like you're
Yeah.
having an impact.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if somebody is calling around, they'll mention, well, we've all also talked to, what's the name of the ministry again?
The Coastal Pregnancy
The
Center.
coastal pregnancy, and so I think that's probably how you're on their radar. But I think an official acknowledgement from them would be beneficial. So because a lot of times we think of things in terms of their competitors of ours, and to me on this topic, we need collaboration. We need to get the voices out there from organizations like yours that are giving alternatives. And it's not to take away anything from what any other organization is doing, like Planned Parenthood or other organizations that may have similar type ministries that you have. I think it's such a huge problem in the African American community that the more we have people involved, organizations involved with different points of view, the better it is for the overall community. So one of the questions I have, I do want you to mention again how people can get in touch with you, your website, your phone number, and then if you can touch base on if there are any new programs that you'll be introducing, or what do you see on the horizon? Okay.
Well, we are the Coastal Pregnancy Center, and we are a ministry of our church. You can reach us at 912-721-2975, and we've also got we're also on Facebook as well. We have a Facebook page as well.
Okay.
But our
what's the name of the Facebook page?
The Facebook page is
Probably,
is it
probably can pull it up by Coastal Pregnancy.
Coastal Pregnancy Center. You're going to be able to you'll be able to pull it up that way. Our website is coastalpregnancycenter.com. And there's some more information there about who we are, our purpose, what we hope to achieve, with each young lady that comes in to visit with us.
Okay. So do you have anything that will be upcoming on the horizon that's different? I mean, have you thought about doing outreach in the community, or do you just wait till the calls come to you?
Pretty much we wait for
And
those
we
calls.
outreach
Because I know
as
you're-
far as, we have a little pamphlet
Mm-hmm.
that has everything on it that we do, and we
Right.
give them out. As a matter of fact, I took a stack of
Yeah.
them to hand out to the centers in White Bluff, and also the churches.
Right. We have a rack card that I also send out to all the lead counselors in all the high schools and the college health centers, so that they know that we're available and we are there. So
Because I know you're small staff too,
Yeah.
so you have to manage your capacity of what you
Right.
can what you can manage. You don't want to get to a place where people are not getting the call back, or
Yeah.
they're not reaching somebody immediately. Because
mostly it's word of mouth.
Right.
Like I said, we've been a ministry for 33 years.
Yeah.
Um,
Perfect.
over the space of time, we actually opened February 18th, 1985, and we suspect that we've seen over 39,000 clients since we opened our doors. So it's a lot about it. Most of it is about word of mouth.
So, believe it or not, we're out of time. And so I do want to let the listeners know that the viewpoints expressed in the preceding program were not necessarily those of WRUU, its license holder, or its staff. And as we prepare for the next host coming in, it's Troy Stoner with Sound Limits. And if you'd like to share your story, you can reach me at mystory@onehumannation.info. For your personal stories. And if there's a particular topic you want us to cover, you can reach us at onehumannation@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and continue on your journey through race reconciliation and seeking out the truth from different points of view and keeping an open mind. Remember, we're not about judgment here. We're about learning and feeling safe to share your story. So I welcome you to reach out to me and continue on your race reconciliation journey. So we are going to wind up for the show, and I'm just looking to see if I uploaded the interlude music, and I don't see it, so I'm going to take a couple of minutes to do that, just to... Okay, so as we're tuning out, and I hope everybody has a blessed week and continue on your journey. Thanks for listening.